the previous video, I recorded this melody, or I made this melody, rather. So today I think I want to add some drums to it, and I think I want to make it into Boom Bap, which is part of the reason why I chose 178 BPM. So let's begin. I could do a number of things. I could make it from scratch, or we could drag in a loop. I think I will start with from scratch. Load it up. Alright. So I've got a kick here. And another one here. We'll see what they sound like together. We can do like a little boom, ba-dum, boom. So boom, clap, ba-dum, boom, boom. Here, let me grab a snare so that I have something to like hear the kick bouncing off of. And anything that's not the main snare, like this one, I tend to make it, first of all, I tend to pan it either left or right. But I also tend to change the pitch if it's like, you know, the same sound as a main clap or main snare, just to kind of give it a different texture. Like towards the end of this phrase, I want to do like a little double ba-dum, ba-dum. So ba-dum, ba-dum. Copy this over. And then I've been doing this recently. I've been making the kicks kind of change over time. So what I can do is come over here and get rid of like this one to make this half just a little bit different here. And then at the end of all of these, something else that I've done quite a bit is keeping like the notes like on like a 1, 2, 3 kind of timing, and then copy and paste it. So it only kind of changes in this half, and then it repeats again over here. Let's hear what this sounds like after I copy it to the other kick. So let me take out the snare that's hitting there. So I'm adding this little like shaker texture. I think I had enough like snare sounds for my taste. So now I'm kind of adding either crashes, shakers, arc sounds, that sort of thing. You can't tell, I'm very much a texture person. I like to have a bunch of different sounds and textures, even if some of the sounds are the same sound technically, just pitched up or down. I like to have a bunch of different sounds because I get bored pretty easily listening to the exact same thing going on here. So I've got my main 2 snares that are layered, with one of them playing some like off notes like in between. And then I have one other snare, it looks like. Yeah, so one other snare that's just kind of playing, so it's this one. Also kind of playing between, and then I have like this like open hat shaker sound. Well, I don't know if that's really, it's kind of a shaker sound. Anyway, I've got that sound playing every so often, and then I've got this little like jingle also playing in the middle throughout, and then this like deeper, darker kind of open hat sound. So I have a bunch of different textures kind of playing throughout. So when I go through and add a hi-hat, it'll probably be super light. Like it's not going to be super complex, I don't imagine, because I've got a whole bunch of other sounds already kind of filling out the space. Speaking of the hi-hat, let's go ahead and add that. course, I say that. I can add a little bit of like, you know, variability here and there. Kind of little like half velocity notes here and there. Okay, now what I'm doing is kind of processing my drum sounds. So all of my hat sounds are right here, and I want my main one to kind of be merged a little bit, and then I want the rest to be pushed out to the side so that they get out of the way. Okay, let's put all the hats together. And then if I wanted to, I could process them further. I'm really not processing them a whole lot. I'm just cutting like the extreme highs and then the lows. And then I have a limiter, which in this case isn't doing anything right now. Okay, I'm gonna kind of do the same thing with my snares as I did with my hats. And my main snares are these two, right? So I'm gonna center this one, the one that's only hitting on like the main snare timing. That. This one has that other timing, that other snare sound that's kind of in between. So I'm gonna separate this one. And the reason I do this is because I like my main snare to have part of it more in mono and part of it kind of separated. So you have like that impact, and then you have like that spread sound afterwards that kind of goes out to the sides a little bit. And then any snares that aren't the main snare or main clap, I go ahead and separate just like I did with the hats. I'm gonna take all the snares, put them together. Okay, both of these snares have a lot of noise on them, so I'm actually going to shave a little bit of the noise, like the high end off of this one. Okay, so I'm layering two kicks together, so I'm going to process them together. And to process them, I've got a wave shaper, which is set to a hard clipping setting. EQ. And then sometimes I don't use Maximus, sometimes I do. It's really only if I really want to make sure that I'm hitting. And in this case, I want to make sure that this is 50 hertz and below, roughly. I want to make sure that my low end of my kick is getting at least to this point, which is negative 8.7 decibels. So if it's not, I'm going to push into it. So we just are barely compressing into it. And something else I like to do is take some of the quieter stuff and make it even quieter, because I don't want necessarily all of the stuff that's kind of bleeding down in here. And then I'll do the opposite for the louder stuff, make it a little bit louder. Push into a compressor a little bit more. Okay, so something else I'm going to change is all of my drum sounds are perfectly on the grid currently, which on its own isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I want to introduce like a little bit of humanization, a little bit of variability to the drums a little bit. So we'll change the kick. So I'm just going to highlight everything, hit Alt-Q, and it's going to quantize everything to whatever grid I have selected. So if I have the dotted eighth note grid selected, it's going to want to quantize these to that new grid if you have it turned all the way on. If you turn it all the way off, nothing changes. The notes are exactly where they were. So if you want some kind of like randomization on the timing of the notes, just kind of push this up a little bit. You'll kind of push and pull the notes back and forwards a little bit. Accept. And I'm going to copy this over so that they're playing at the exact same time. Kind of makes the drums a little bit sloppier, a little bit imperfect. And then we can do something similar with the hats. Let's make all the hats just a little bit late. But now not everything is exactly on the grid. We still have our snares that are all kind of hitting right on time. But now our kicks are kind of random a little bit. They're kind of hitting a little bit early, a little bit late. And then my hi-hats are all hitting at around the same time, but they've all been pushed back, so they're all late. So they're not hitting at exactly the same time as everything else. Yeah, so you don't always want to do that. You don't always want to like randomize timings of drum sounds. But I think that having some contrast is a good idea. So if you have other drum sounds that are already perfectly on the grid, you know, try throwing some of them off the grid a little bit. Humanize them a little bit with the timing and maybe the velocity and that sort of thing. But obviously you don't want to take that too far. If you have all of the drum sounds off the grid, it's going to sound off. Like it's not going to sound right. So you do need to be careful with like how much you're doing it. But if you're doing it with, you know, just one or two elements, it can sound pretty cool. Okay, I kind of want to add a bass guitar. Okay, and I'm gonna humanize this as well because it is a bass guitar, so it could sound like somebody's playing it for real. So Control A, Alt R, Alt S if you wanted to strum, Alt Q if you want to randomize the timing. I'm gonna randomize the timing a little bit more than I did with a kick. And then we'll accentuate that a little bit. I'm gonna move some of these a little bit more. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is use parallel compression. I'm gonna take my kicks, my claps and snares, and my hats, put them all on one drum bus. Okay, and so this is my drum. Okay, so now I'm gonna use parallel compression to make the drums hit a little bit harder, hopefully. So let's take the drums, send them to these two places. So it's being sent to these two buses. I'm going to have over compression, and the second one is just going to be like the send, where the sound is all going. So I've got my original signal going to my send, and then my original signal is also being sent to here, which is also being sent to the send. So only 30% of this sound is actually making its way to the send, whereas all of the original sound is making its way. So I've got my original signal and then my overcompressed signal, which is being overcompressed, and then only 30% of it is being sent to my, output. It's going to make the signal very fat, very short, very compressed is what it's doing. It's very compressed. And so only 30% of this signal is being mixed in. So let's hear before and after. So it's not a huge difference. It's just a little bit of more like beefiness, a little bit more presence, a little bit more, however you want to describe it. Just makes the drums sound a little bit louder. All the video is I'm going to sidechain. So I'm going to take my kick and I'm going to sidechain it to a whole bunch of different things. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to sidechain it to is my bass guitar. So let's bring it down. Instruments. So one of the things I'm going to do it with is the melody bus. So which sounds kind of strange, but I'm going to do something similar. I'm not going to sidechain the kick super aggressively. It's going to be very light. So you can see that says 1 to 3 to 1. So it's a very light ratio. Yeah, we just barely want sound ducking down because I don't want this to be noticeable, especially with the melody part. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the claps and snares, and then also with the hats. A bunch of stuff. So this is what it's.